In this video, I'm going to look at the neighborhood of West Cambridge and share with you 5 things you need to know about West Cambridge. Stay tuned. So West Cambridge is a neighborhood of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and it's bound by Harvard Square, the Charles River, Fresh Pond, and Concord Avenue. It's a low-density residential neighborhood home to some 18,000 residents. And in this video, I want to share with you 5 things you need to know about West Cambridge. Number 5, the neighborhood of West Cambridge is mainly known for its large collection of single-family homes. So single-family homes in Cambridge as a city are not the majority property type, but rather the minority property type, in the sense that there aren't too many single-family homes in the city. Generally speaking, most of the properties are condominiums. And then in addition, there are multifamilies. The rare bird is an actual single family. And most of the single families in the city are found in West Cambridge. And many of them are found on larger lots. So first thing on this list of 5 things you need to know about West Cambridge is it's where you're mostly going to find the single families in the city, and many of them are on larger lots. Now, in 2021, the average cost of a single family in West Cambridge is in the $2.8 million vicinity. So it's an expensive proposition to own a single family home in West Cambridge. The lots, as I said, can be larger and very inviting. And again, by the measure of many people from many other places, the lots may seem small. But by Cambridge standards, to have a little bit of a front yard and a backyard and some space separating you from your neighbor puts you in a category that not too many people in the city enjoy. So real estate in West Cambridge, yes, it is expensive. If you're in the market for a single family, you may end up turning your attention to this neighborhood. Next on my list is that West Cambridge is part of the most famous zip code in Cambridge, which is 02138. There's a cafe in West Cambridge on Mount Auburn Street called Darwin's, and when you go into the Darwin's there, they have a framed notice on the wall just inside the door that says 02138, the most opinionated zip code in America. And I think for some people, there's some cachet to living in 02138. It's a zip code that encompasses all of West Cambridge, as well as parts of the Agassiz neighborhood and Mid-Cambridge. And most people, when they think of the 02138 zip code, think of West Cambridge. Third on my list of things you need to know about West Cambridge are the named neighborhoods that make up West Cambridge, of which there are 5. So on the other side of Fresh Pond Parkway are 2 named neighborhoods, namely Coolidge Hill and Larchwood. Coolidge Hill is very close to the Shady Hill School and to the BB&N Upper School campus. And actually, the neighborhood really only consists of a couple meandering streets. It's entirely made up of single-family homes. Very rarely does one come up for sale in this neighborhood. And of course, the proximity to Shady Hill School and BB&N make the neighborhood popular with families with children at either one of these private schools. Just across from Coolidge Hill, again on the other side of Fresh Pond Parkway, is the Larchwood neighborhood. And it is also made up of just a handful of meandering streets. It's made up of single-family homes. And it really does feel like a tucked away neighborhood. Coolidge Hill is a little closer to the sound of street traffic on the parkway. But Larchwood does allow you to escape that to a greater extent. And it's an extremely inviting, tucked away neighborhood of well-maintained single-family homes. So very special. It feels to many people more like a drive-to address than a walk-to-everything equation. but it's still conveniently located to Cambridge Life and Living. The other named neighborhoods of West Cambridge include Observatory Hill, running up along Concord Avenue and taking its name from the observatory at Harvard University, found on Concord Avenue. And there's a number of shops and services that define Observatory Hill, including Reside, which sells reclaimed and restored mid-century modern furniture, and High Rise Bakery and Cafe on Concord Avenue. And so there's quite a few nice little shops and services that make up this neighborhood, Observatory Hill, along Concord Avenue. And then intersecting with Concord Avenue and curving around into the heart of West Cambridge is Huron Village. And Huron Village is just that, a village. It's a lovely little neighborhood center. And right in the heart of the village, there's Cambridge Trust Bank, and there's the new Formaggio kitchen that moved up the street and took over the Fresh Pond Market space. So there's some additional shops and restaurants and services that make up Huron Village. It's a very quaint and lovely little neighborhood center for the West Cambridge neighborhood. And then last but not least, as a named neighborhood of West Cambridge, is Harvard Square itself, which is, you could say, a neighborhood unto itself, but we're going to put it for all intents and purposes in the West Cambridge neighborhood. And it's where it starts, if you will. The heart of Harvard Square is the intersection of JFK Street and Brattle Street, and where the T station is found, and just across the street is Harvard Yard. And of course, there's a number of shops and services right in the heart of Harvard Square. And it really is, if you will, part and parcel of the West Cambridge neighborhood. It sits in the corner of West Cambridge. So these named neighborhoods are, subsections, if you will, of West Cambridge, which is nice. It's an eclectic place with different feelings for the different sub neighborhoods. Next on my list of 5 things you need to know about West Cambridge are the main drags, the main streets that define the neighborhood. And these are largely moving east to west, west to east. And so we begin with Memorial Drive down on the Charles River. And what's nice about Memorial Drive is, in season on Sunday, they close the drive to automobile traffic and make it pedestrian friendly for the balance of the day. And it's really nice to take a walk on that day down on the river without cars whizzing by, to ride your bicycle. People come out with their dog or pushing a stroller, and people will sit down and relax and enjoy the river's edge on these days in particular. And it's really a lovely experience. Interesting, as this borders the river on West Cambridge, beginning at JFK, and there's the JFK Park, which is a lovely green space located at the corner of JFK and Memorial Drive. And then as you continue in the direction of Fresh Pond Parkway along Memorial Drive in West Cambridge, there's a series of well-maintained brick buildings and additional open green space, and the boat clubs for Harvard. And it's just very nice to be down there. There's typically someone on the water, and it's just very inviting to watch someone row by. And sometimes a kayak will come through. Paddle boarders sometimes will be out there. It's just very nice to see and feel the presence of the river and the water in West Cambridge, defining its edge. Then above Memorial Drive is Mount Auburn Street, and it begins in Harvard Square at the Harvard Square Post Office, and then it shoots out past Darwin's Cafe, which I mentioned earlier, and it goes past a couple of buildings that are popular 221 Mount Auburn Street, known as Riverview, which looks out onto the Charles River. 1010 Memorial Drive, although it's called 1010 Memorial Drive, has its Circle Drive entrance on Mount Auburn Street. The Mount Auburn Hospital then comes up next, right there next to 1010 Memorial Drive. It's the main hospital for West Cambridge and the city of Cambridge. And then you're up at the light with Fresh Pond Parkway. So Memorial Drive, then above it, Mount Auburn Street. And then above Mount Auburn Street is Brattle Street, which is perhaps the most famous street in all of Cambridge, known as Tory Row, home to the Loyalists before the American Revolution. It is filled with famous homes, mainly restored, for the most part, much larger. So these are some of the most significant homes in all of Cambridge. Beautiful street, starts in the heart of Harvard Square. And then as you move into West Cambridge, as you move west on Brattle Street into the heart of the Brattle Street neighborhood on Brattle Street, these big, beautiful homes emerge on either side of the street. The Longfellow House, which is owned by the Park Service, is maintained as a museum. It's found on Brattle Street, just outside of Harvard Square, and that's quite lovely. And again, it's just a wonderful street filled with so many big and beautiful homes. As a residential real estate broker, I've had the great good fortune of listing several homes on Brattle Street in my career, and it's always a real treat to do so. I would say that as you drive down Brattle Street, it's just so interesting. So it's a street with some pretty significant street traffic, including trucks. It has a yellow line. And, you know, during the day when traffic's flowing, it can pick up speed and cars can move even at 30 plus miles per hour along Brattle Street. So it's always struck me as sort of interesting that there's the democratic reality of street traffic and anyone and everyone, the public, coming through on Brattle Street. And then just set back from the sidewalk are these big, substantial private single-family homes. So wonderful street, not to be missed if you're exploring West Cambridge. And then above Brattle Street is the aforementioned Huron Avenue, which is the main street or drag of Huron Village. It gives Huron Village its name, Huron Avenue does, where there's actually some shop services and a couple of restaurants. And it's got a curve in it that makes it kind of an inviting avenue. And there's just a nice village vibe to Huron Avenue, and it's well named, Huron Village. The side streets that abut it make for nice West Cambridge living, where people can easily walk into the village and, you know, do some shopping and take a walk. It's family friendly, very appealing. So that's Huron Avenue. And then above Huron Avenue, defining the northern edge, if you will, of West Cambridge is Concord Avenue. And Concord Avenue is a busier street. It begins in Harvard Square and it runs out on a bit of an angle out to the Rotaries at Fresh Pond. And it's a main bus line and it's a main traffic line bringing people in and out of Cambridge. And as I said, it defines the northern edge, if you will, of West Cambridge. Observatory Hill, one of the named neighborhoods, plays out on Concord Avenue. And there is, you know, a number of smaller condo associations located along Concord Avenue as well. So not everyone who lives in West Cambridge lives in a large single family. There are, as you see along Concord Avenue, condominium associations as well. And there are condo associations as well found throughout the neighborhood. There are actually quite a few lovely smaller associations in amongst all the single families that otherwise define the neighborhood. And then first on my list of 5 things you need to know about West Cambridge is that Harvard University has a strong felt presence in the neighborhood. So the Harvard Kennedy School is located at the intersection of JFK and Memorial Drive, next to JFK Park. And the Shorenstein Center is part and parcel of the Harvard Kennedy School, and that building is adjacent to the principal Harvard Kennedy School building down there. And so the K School is a big part of this West Cambridge neighborhood in the heart of Harvard Square. And then on Brattle Street, or between Brattle and Garden Street, is the Harvard Graduate School of Education along Appian Way. And that sits next to Radcliffe Yard, where the Schlesinger Library is found, and the Harvard Admissions Office, and some additional Harvard buildings. So that's a really beautiful yard and collection of Harvard buildings. There are additional Radcliffe buildings along Concord Avenue in West Cambridge as you head up into the heart of the neighborhood. And so there's just the presence of Harvard University in West Cambridge in specifically these locations. But I would say more generally that quite a few people who work at Harvard or attend Harvard are living in West Cambridge. So the university has a very strong felt presence in West Cambridge. And it's so convenient if you live in West Cambridge and you work at Harvard that you could walk into Harvard Square or Harvard Yard just across from West Cambridge and be at work. So West Cambridge, when people think of Cambridge, many people think of West Cambridge. It's the most famous zip code, 02138. It has some of the biggest and most beautiful homes in the city. It includes Harvard Square. It has a strong felt presence of Harvard. It's really the best of all possible worlds in the minds of many when it comes to Cambridge. Now, there are additional named neighborhoods that make up Cambridge. West Cambridge is not the complete and total story. In fact, on this channel, I have a video on every named neighborhood in Cambridge, of which there are 13, plus 5 named squares. So there's a lot to make the city what it is, but this video has been all about West Cambridge. It's a wonderful neighborhood. I had the great good fortune of living in West Cambridge on Lexington Avenue off Brattle Street for a number of years. I'm in and out of West Cambridge each and every day as a residential real estate broker. And so I welcome the opportunity to connect with you directly if I can be of service to you as you give thought to buying the right home or selling for the best price in West Cambridge or another named neighborhood of Cambridge or neighboring Somerville. My name is Charles Cherney, and you can reach out by text, telephone, or email to me at any time. I have my contact information in the description below. I am someone who's fond of West Cambridge, in and out of the neighborhood each and every day of my life, and excited to share with you more than I've shared here, but hopefully giving you these 5 things you need to know about West Cambridge in this video gives you a better sense of this very special neighborhood of Cambridge, Massachusetts. Please reach out at any time to learn more, and I'll talk with you soon. Take care.